This is too much pink. This is potentially, to a large portion of people in my life, the coming out announcement. And this is just Paul. I've been on the internet for many a moon, and many a pride, and I'm not really sure why I never got roped into the trend of the coming out story. The cup-clutching thumbnail, the long-ass story for saying very little of a story. I think there's a couple reasons. One, this little subject of me and my relationships is like just teetering the edge over too personal for me. I like to make videos that are both helpful and entertaining, and I believe that any coming out story could be just that. When I put so much of my life out there online, my career, my artistry, my real life stories, sometimes you just gotta say, like, where do you draw the line? And the second reason is I am not sure if I really have a very succinct coming out story. I mean, technically I'm out, but I don't really know how many people should care or how many people's business it actually is. But I feel so much of my personal self comes through in my art that it's going to be a subject eventually, so I might as well nip that in the bud. So finally, 2 months after Pride, let's tell our coming out story. We're just right on track with how timely this show is. What's it matter when you're queer all year round? I've known such since I was middle high school. If I get real specific, I remember I had a dream about Lindsay Lohan being a mermaid, and I was trapped in a car that was underwater, and she saved me, and, you know, all she was wearing was a fin. And yes, of course, people have crazy dreams all the time, but that one especially piqued my interest, and I noticed that it was probably trying to tell me something. So as you guys are itching to know the answer to what I'm coming out about, hi, I'm Jess. I'm bi for the rest of my life. I do actually remember the first person I came out to and where it happened, how it happened. It was one of my close friends in high school, let's call them Riley, in the lunch line at high school, and we both were on the subject of, I don't know, things that we were interested in, and we both came out as bisexual to each other at the same time. Like, we were really good friends. This wasn't just like somebody I knew from math class. I myself wasn't quite sure what I was gonna do with that information of myself, you know, because it certainly would seem harder to try to, like, go outside the norm, and at least in my school, or at least with my level of confidence, I would have thought that would have been kind of scandalous. Like, I wouldn't have wanted people talking about me or asking about me, and, you know, have one more thing about you that stands out in high school for people to grab onto and start shit about. Even to this day, I'm a person that doesn't necessarily approach people, so I never did. Guys would always ask me out, and I would pretty much want to give most guys a try, so I usually said yes until I didn't want to date them anymore. So while I dated a couple guys in high school, I really didn't know what other girls would be interested in girls, or how you would even learn that about somebody. No girls asked me out, and I wasn't asking them out. So the way that I remember that I expressed myself was that I would write... Wow. I would write short film scripts, and the movies would have 2 female characters. It was a love story between them. I remember writing one about, like, you know, feminism in the 70s. Kind of a way that I wanted to express myself without fully committing to the idea, or at least, like, the reality of the idea. And when I was 19, I finally wrote Jesse's Girl, my feature script that still sits on my metaphorical desk until one day I might have the funds to produce it. But my story, much like Promenade, which was its kind of micro short proof of concept, it had a lesbian love story as the center of a rom-com, and it just wasn't weird. Back then when I was 19, it was really groundbreaking. There wasn't as much like it, and now it's kind of normalized, which is kind of where I want to be on the track to making LGBT more accessible. Not only permissible, you'd be watching a movie and there would be a homosexual relationship and you barely bat an eye. I like that idea. But I did write the first draft of Jesse's Girl when I was 19, and it was bad. My mom would read my writing, and she would give me notes, and, you know, I asked her about what she thought of it, and she said, in so many words, I mean, it's not necessarily my cup of tea. It was put in a nice way that, like, it just wasn't the kind of genre that she would be interested in. I would be home from college and working, and we'd be talking. It kind of came up in conversation. I don't exactly remember specifically what was exchanged, but I kind of was like, you know, I wrote that story because I'm bisexual. It is a subject that interests me. And she was pretty cool with it. I pretty much remember her, like, kind of nodding along, and she might have asked me a question or two, but that was pretty much the talk, and that was how I came out to my mom, and then just hoped that she would tell my dad. It is so hard to come out every single time, because no matter how close you think that you are to somebody, it's just quite an announcement sometimes when people might not be expecting of it. I'm lucky. I mean, I never really faced any kind of backlash or any kind of problems. To be honest, I feel like I've always felt kind of safe, just because, well, I mean, I don't want to get deep into my dating history in this little episode. If you want me to get a little bit deeper, I guess that I can make a video about that. I mean, you gotta put in the comments, because I'm not gonna voluntarily do that. But since men assumed me to be straight and then asked me out, I would get into relationships with men and also never ask anyone else out, including women. Like, when I was in college, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone till I was like 24, when I was faced with the ultimatum of, I'm now in my professional acting agency in my market. I either have to learn how to drive a car to go to auditions, or I have to get a cell phone to get lifts when I need them. And I decided to get a cell phone. I didn't have Google on my phone at all times. I went to Sundance with a glorified flip phone. I had to use a map when my director said that she was at a house party on such and such street, and I followed a map with a pen from a hotel. I've lived it, guys. So I never had Tinder. I literally didn't have Tinder till we come to 2019, when I finally moved out of Pittsburgh. I moved out of my last relationship. I was single for the first time in a while, and I got onto Tinder. You guys saw that. That was probably one of the only other times I ever talked about my sexuality on the internet, on YouTube. And I actually used that Tinder profile that we created live to date women. I went on about 3 dates. The thing is, I never used a dating app to begin with, so I was new to both dating apps and women, and kind of dating. To divulge a little, I was in 2 long-term relationships with men, not at the same time, one after the other, through the entirety of my 20s. First guy for 3 years, second guy for 5 years, with very little time in between. So I really never dated a bunch. But at the end of the few weeks of dating, I realized how much I am in the mode of making this career happen for myself, that I couldn't focus on anything else significantly but the work that I do. If it either is movies or my day job or my art, or even, YouTube being something that I take very seriously, it doesn't really leave room for anybody else. And I'm totally cool with that. Like, when I talk to people about how comfortable I am being single and not being bothered by even the prospect of dating, I don't think they believe me. What's more annoying than having to meet a bunch of people, have a bunch of small talk, and usually not find someone you're even 80% compatible with? Maybe it's just me. My point is, I guess the third tier of my coming out story is, last year, maybe 2 years ago, when I was telling everybody about starting my new YouTube channel. And one of the earliest episodes that I knew that I wanted to do was the live episode where we made my Tinder account. And it would be a sort of excuse for me to tell some people that were in my life that, so I'm going to be doing this really fun, cool, like interesting episode where my followers are going to help me make a Tinder account because I'm bi, but I've never dated a woman, so that's going to be the twist. And then everybody would just react in however they would react, which was usually very polite. And now, boys and girls, it's time for that part of the show that I realized I forgot to do as I was lying in bed long after I was all done filming, the wheel. So down in those comments, I usually ask you something about the topic of the week, but I'm not going to ask you to divulge your personal sexual secrets unless you want to. I'm here for that, but Art and Etsy. But instead, I'd like you to pass around this video if you feel that it could be helpful to somebody in your life. I didn't give a whole lot of very specific advice or helpful information, but something that I find has been so helpful to me over the years is just finding people out there that don't make me seem or feel completely weird or alone or by myself. I have a variety show. I talk about so many different kinds of things, and not everybody is going to relate to every single thing. But maybe on some small level, you'll get to know me a little bit better. You can find other point of views out there because, this internet is full of them. But if you kind of like this subject and you'd like more of it, well, you gotta tell me about that because I'm not necessarily a mind reader. And if you would like to see my face again, well, liking the video and subscribing to my channel might help you do that in the future. Who knows? I don't know how YouTube works anymore. This is my outro.